Hi, it's Natasha, and welcome to my channel. Finding the right therapist can feel nearly impossible these days, especially with the pandemic creating a mental health crisis. More and more people are looking for therapists, and more therapists are burning out. But that doesn't mean you should settle when you're looking for a therapist. Taking the time to find someone who works well with you and can help you with your mental health is both important and admirable. The first step is reaching out, and the next step is vetting. Over the last 12 years, I've had at least 10 therapists, and I'm in the process now of looking for one that works for me as an adult. I think I've had enough experience to make this list of red flags, so let's get started. Number 1, they judge you. Therapy should be a non-judgmental place for you to share your thoughts and feelings, a safe space. If your therapist is making passive-aggressive or outright critical comments about something that you're telling them, you're not going to feel comfortable telling them anything, and therapy will be a waste of time. I had one therapist call me and the people around me crazy because she didn't like how a situation I told her about was being handled, and that same therapist called me a mouse in the corner for not standing up for myself in another situation. I spent most of my time with her just kind of smiling and nodding and filtering out what I said to her. I think sometimes this disconnect can happen because you and your therapist just don't share the same morals, and if your therapist is unprofessional and lets their opinions get in the way, that makes communication nearly impossible. Number 2, they're bossy and manipulative. Along the same lines, some therapists cross the line and try to tell you what to do with your life, and that is completely unprofessional. This can take the form of forceful commands or quiet manipulation. A therapist is a guide, not a life coach, and it's really inappropriate for them to boss you around. They can offer advice if you ask for it, but telling you what to do takes away from the self-empowerment that you should be gaining from therapy. Your therapist also shouldn't try to push you into doing something that you're not ready for. Therapy is a process, and it takes patience. Number 3, they treat you like a project or a study. I think some of that bossiness and manipulation from my last point comes from a therapist looking at you like a project. They get frustrated when you don't follow their advice or behave the way that they want you to. I've had 2 therapists so far treat me like they were studying me and trying to fix me, and it was super uncomfortable. At the very least, your therapist should treat you like a person. They should try to have real empathetic conversations with you and not be so cold and detached. Number 4, they show a lack of empathy. A lack of empathy is another red flag to watch out for in a therapist. Even if they don't agree with everything that you're saying or doing, a therapist should still show some basic empathy in your sessions. They should try to understand where you're coming from. If you tell them about a recent crisis and they say nothing and try to move on to whatever they want to talk about, or you talk about a trauma and they say it's not that bad and not worth discussing, that's obviously a huge red flag. I've also had a therapist show no empathy for the people in my life, and it was honestly disgusting. When I talked about a family crisis, she said at least it would keep my family out of my hair for a while. And when I talked about a friend being bullied, she said at least I wasn't the one being picked on. I was shocked. Number 5, they try to act like a friend. Your therapy sessions are not a source of entertainment for your therapist, and your therapist is not your friend. I had one session with a therapist, and only one because she actually ghosted me after one session, and she spent the entire time fixated on this one relationship issue that I mentioned. She just wanted to sit there judging my then boyfriend and acting like I was just some friend venting to her about my problems and giving her the latest gossip. It was all really unprofessional. A therapist should feel like someone you can talk to, and I really like when you can relate to your therapist and you have a lot of things in common, but there's a line that shouldn't be crossed. Your therapist is not your friend, and the drama in your life is not for their entertainment. Number 6, they don't listen to you. Isn't it so frustrating when you try to explain yourself to someone and they're just not getting what you're saying? If this is happening regularly in therapy, you might want to find someone else. Your therapist should try to understand you and ask clarifying questions if they don't. If your therapist is ignoring you, misconstruing what you're saying, making assumptions about how you feel, or dismissing your concerns, they're not listening to you, and you're not going to get anywhere in therapy. Number 7, they do most of the talking. There should be a balance in communication with your therapist, and actually, you should be doing most of the talking. Therapy is not a TED Talk for your therapist. Ranting, lecturing, and talking about their own problems is completely unprofessional and inappropriate. It just creates this power imbalance where you're just their audience and not an active participant in your therapy sessions. Number 8, they act like a motivational speaker. I once had a therapist who liked to use a lot of buzzwords and meaningless phrases. She sounded more like a motivational speaker at like an MLM pyramid scheme cult meeting than an actual therapist. It all sounds good at first, but then you realize that that kind of magical thinking doesn't actually help you. Therapy is work, and progress doesn't happen overnight. Side note from experience, if your therapist tries to force you to read this book they say will change your life, run. Number 9, they make false promises and seem overconfident. This one rubs me the wrong way and is something I've become so well attuned to. If you schedule a consultation, or even if you've been seeing your therapist for a couple weeks and they promise that they can cure you in just a few sessions, or they offer all these different types of therapy that they're not actually trained in, it's time to move on to your next candidate. These are false promises. They're not going to come true. A good therapist knows that therapy takes time and that timeline is unpredictable because people aren't textbooks, they're human beings. Also, if you're looking for a specific type of therapy, try to find someone who actually specializes in it and don't let them string you along just waiting for them to incorporate that into your sessions. I'm so suspicious when a therapist says, "I can definitely help you with that," to every problem that I present them in the consultation, or when they say, "I'm gonna get trained in that," every time I bring up like DBT or CBT or EMDR or ART. Number 10, they don't match your communication or learning style. This red flag isn't really something to get angry over. Therapists are people too, and sometimes people just don't get along. If you're just not vibing with your therapist, if you don't like their silence or the way they ask questions, if you prefer to express yourself through art and they really like their clients to fill out worksheets, it's okay to look for another therapist that you can work well with. I made this video because I know how hard it is to find a good therapist, so if you are uncomfortable with your current one and you're not sure if you're reading too much into things or overreacting, I hope this video will empower you to drop that therapist and find the right one for you. Because therapy is about you and your needs, and you deserve to get the help you need. I will be making a part 2 with green flags for good therapists, so stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.